What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Wednesday, May 28th edition of the Ship My Money Show. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoney DFS. And we have a 5-game main slate tonight. Going to go through that game by game as we usually do. I had 5 games this morning as well. That's why I didn't do the show earlier. I am going to stick with, more often than not, trying to do the show around noon or 12:30 Eastern. Seemed like you guys liked that when I did it yesterday. So gonna do that when I can, but the weird slate timing today, and I had some other stuff scheduled, so I couldn't. So going now, but in general, do look for this around that time. But 5-gamer tonight. Doesn't look like we have any really significant weather concerns. Potential for bad weather in Kansas City. But right now, at least, I think that looks like it's okay. The Baltimore game's not on the slate. Neither is the Philadelphia game, which was already postponed. So we dodged most of the rain, even though it seems like there is kind of some shitty weather in a lot of different places. So I'm going to go through using the Run the Sims projections that you see on the screen. If you are looking to use those in your own process, the link is in the description below. Sign up through that link. We have the full projections package where you get access to the downloadable data, fully detailed as you see on the screen. Also, if you want the less expensive package, if you play single entry, 3 max, not a lot of volume, you can also sign up for the overlay, which is just our projections overlaid onto the DraftKings lineups page. So good for hand building, good for, playing a couple of lineups, playing a few lineups, good for late swap, all of that. That is also included in the full package if you go that route. So you can sign up using the link in the description below. Been really happy with these. And we did just actually release a little bit of an update to them yesterday, dialing in some stuff on our batted ball data. That is an improvement over where it was at before. So excited for that. A couple of guys that were kind of would pop up a lot. Aren't popping up as much now. So excited to not be jamming Agustin Ramirez every slate anymore. But we got that. We got that figured out. So that is live now as well. So going to go game by game and take a look at the player exposures I'd have if the slate started right now across my 50 lineups, and then also just talk through all the aspects of each game as usual. Starting with the Reds taking on Kansas City in Kansas City. So good park for scoring runs, not a good park for hitting home runs, not a good park for getting strikeouts. We have Hunter Green on the mound for the Reds. He is $9,000 coming back from injury. Noah Cameron is on the mound for Kansas City at $8,800. Hunter Green right now projected for about 30% ownership. I'm not getting much of him. I only have about 6%. I think it's a workload issue. Generally, we are very high on Hunter Green from a talent standpoint. Usually we have the highest projection in the industry, or at least are close to it. But today he's not really showing up. He returned from injury last start against the Cubs. He threw 83 pitches in 4 innings. So I think he's probably not significantly limited here, maybe, a little bit, but you can see we have him right now projected to go between 5 and 6 innings. So nothing too crazy there. 22 to 23 batters faced. So I think it's just the matchup and the park that is pulling him down a little bit. And it's not that we have a really low projection on him or anything like that. Still projected just shy of 17 fantasy points. Still certainly has a high ceiling, but not showing up in a ton of my lineups right now, which kind of sucks because I like rostering Hunter Green. He is really, really good. Moving away from talking about my player exposures right now at 330 because they don't really matter. Just talking about Hunter Green as a pitcher. He is a really, really talented pitcher. Early first-round draft pick, really highly regarded prospect. And when he first came up, you kind of saw him as somebody that could get a lot of strikeouts, would also give up a lot of power. He's really improved so far this season. 49 and 2/3 innings pitched. His stuff plus grade is 127, which is absolutely elite. His fastball velocity is up 1.7 miles an hour over last season. His pitching plus grade is up 14.5 points from last year to 122.8. Strikeout percentage up 5 points from 27.7% last season to 32.5% this year. Everything is great as far as Hunter Green from a talent standpoint. He's getting a park upgrade in terms of moving from Great American to Kauffman in terms of power, but it is a very difficult park for getting strikeouts. We know that Kansas City has the lowest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this season. They are also below average in terms of actual production. They rank 26th in WRC+. So pretty much a long-winded way, I think, of saying I get why Hunter Green's getting 30% ownership. I wouldn't fault anyone for playing him. I don't think he's a bad play, but also, at least as of right now, 4 or 5 hours before the slate starts, I am under the field on him because of the tough strikeout matchup. would be pretty happy if that changes, though, because he is obviously really, really good. Noah Cameron on the other side for Kansas City, getting about 10% ownership at $8,800. We have about a 12.5 fantasy point projection on him. I'm not getting to him here either. Again, not a good park for getting strikeouts. 20% strikeout percentage for him so far in the majors. 4.18 xFIP. Projects as, just kind of a middle of the road guy. Not a terrible matchup here against the Reds. Their active roster against left-handed pitching since the start of last season ranks 13th in strikeout percentage. They rank 24th in WRC plus. You get Elly De La Cruz on the wrong side of his switch hitting abilities. I don't know, that was a weird way to word that, but better left-handed hitter generally than right-handed. So you have all of that working in Cameron's favor. But again, you're just getting an elevated salary on him here because he has had good results so far in terms of run prevention so far in the major leagues. 0.93 ERA through 3 starts. Obviously, that is not sustainable, but 3 very good starts so far against Tampa, St. Louis, and Minnesota. Again, he doesn't project to be that good. He just kind of projects to be fine. I think it's an okay matchup, but I think that he is overpriced for his actual talent level as a result of just variance and what we've seen in terms of results in his first few starts. So 5-game slate. Clearly, if you want to play a little bit, that's fine. It's not like we have the best pitching on this slate either. You can see Boyd's fine, Schmidt's fine. Obviously, Green's really good. George Kirby's really good. But the bottom end of the pitching here, certainly not a ton of talent. So I get why there is some ownership there, but it's not where I'm getting to. Offensively, about a 4.5 implied run total for the Reds, around 4 for Kansas City. We have Bobby Witt and Elly De La Cruz, so 2 top-end shortstops, obviously. They're the 2 highest projected guys in the game. Starting on the Cincinnati side, I'm pretty much in line with the field. Field's getting like 5 to 10% ownership on most of these guys. Santiago Espinal getting the most ownership at 10%. That's where I'm at as well, as a value play at 3,600, likely hitting probably second. So offer some value, not a great hitter or anything like that. Through his first 182 pitches thrown, 2 right-handed hitters this year, 186 expected ISO to righties for Cameron, 143 actual ISO. So again, has been somewhat lucky so far. Elly De La Cruz, if you get to him, obviously that's great. Tyler Stevenson's been hitting the ball well lately, gives you some power upside as a $3,900 catcher. Austin Hayes is healthy for the time being. $5,200 is pretty expensive for him, though. But Cincinnati just looking like a secondary stack, mostly for me getting to Espinal right now as a value play. On the other side for KC, I am getting a bit over the field on them against Hunter Green. And I think this is just a function of it being a 5-game slate. When you get larger slates, the idea of stacking against the best pitchers is not that appealing, but on these smaller slates, it becomes more so. So if I'm not going to play that much Hunter Green, it does make sense to get to some Kansas City. India, Witt, Perez, Pasquantino being the guys I'm getting to the most. But again, basically the inverse of what I was saying about Hunter Green. It's not that I like the matchup. It's just that you are getting 30% ownership coming into Green. So you negatively correlate there. You do have some stolen base upside with Witt. Salvador Perez has underperformed in terms of being unlucky so far this season. And I talked about it the other day. Like, part of that is probably because of the park he plays in. Part of it is probably because he's slow as shit. So it's not necessarily that he's getting that unlucky, but he is also clearly hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball well, getting somewhat unlucky, and it's driving his price tag down to 3,700. He is catcher eligible now as well. So I don't mind getting to some of that Kansas City if I'm not playing Green, or even in lineups where I just don't have him, because, negative correlation against pitching does become more important on these shorter slates. You do actually have, plenty of upside in the Kansas City lineup. But again, not a good park for home runs either. So contrarian stack in tournaments. Colorado taking on the Cubs in Chicago. We have Matthew Boyd getting about 57% ownership in the best matchup possible against the Rockies. On the other side, we have Tanner Gordon getting about 2% ownership at 6,500 in a very tough matchup against the Cubs. People are saying I'm frozen. I'm frozen on my screen. So 1, let me know if I'm actually frozen. And 2, let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear me, I don't really know how to fix me being frozen. If you can't hear me, then obviously I need to restart the stream. So let me know if I'm just frozen and the audio is still there, or what's going on your end. But Matthew Boyd, obviously going to look really good, 8,300. The Rockies absolutely suck. They can't hit. Matthew Boyd is a decent enough strikeout pitcher. Since the start of last season, 25.4% strikeout percentage. So far this season for Boyd, striking out 23.7% of hitters, 95 stuff plus grade, 96 pitching plus grade, slightly below average in both of those categories. But the strikeouts are there, and the Rockies are just unbelievably bad. So I'm pretty much in line with the field. 54% of my lineups have Boyd, 57% projected ownership for the field, 19.5 fantasy point projection. We have him right now as the highest projected pitcher on the slate, which really isn't that surprising given that we don't have a ton of great pitching on the slate, and he is facing the Rockies. On the other side, Tanner Gordon, not a spot that I really want to be getting to. The Cubs are obviously a good offense, 4th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching. They rank 15th in strikeout percentage. I don't really see much reason to get to Gordon unless you just need a dirt cheap pitcher and you're trying to get some negative correlation against bats, because I assume the Cubs will have some ownership here. Looking at the weather in Wrigley, it looks like nothing too crazy in terms of temperatures or wind, so should play more neutral here. And starting with the Rockies bats, getting to some Brenton Doyle, getting to some Hunter Goodman. They have some power upside from the right side. Matthew Boyd is a solid pitcher, but he's not elite by any stretch. 154 expected ISO to righties so far this year, 131 going back to the start of last year. So doesn't give up a ton of power, but you do have some power upside in Doyle, in Goodman, Jordan Beck at 4,100. I don't mind getting to those guys. Ryan McMahon, lefty, but he is cheap at least. You have individual Ezekiel Tovar as well. Individually solid hitters at the top of the lineup for Colorado, but it is still a big park downgrade for them. It's not a great matchup. Doyle and Goodman are the guys I'm getting to the most because Doyle's down to only $3,500 and Goodman is a catcher, and we know the opportunity cost at catcher is just going to be lower than at other positions. On the Cubs side, the field's getting to them in the 10 to 15% range, and so am I. Pete Crow-Armstrong, 14%. Kyle Tucker, 14%. Suzuki, Happ, Horner showing up between 5 and 10% for me. So I'm a little bit below the field in the aggregate, but I am getting to the Cubs a bit. Obviously, Kyle Tucker is going to look good. Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to look good, but they are expensive. And when you start stacking them together, it can become difficult. $6,500 for Tucker, $6K for Crow-Armstrong, $5,700 for Suzuki, $4,400 for Happ. Individually, or getting a couple of them, I think should be fine, but it might become a little bit more difficult to get all of them, into a stack. I am going to try and refresh my page, so might cut out. I'm not sure, but going to try and get. Am I back on screen? Can you hear me? So on my end now, it looks like I have a black screen and I can't see myself, but you can see the projections. Not sure that can hear me. All right, so there's audio and no video. Yeah, so I have no idea what's going on with the streaming, but I'll just go to full screen here and take me off of it. So getting back to the Cubs, I think they look good if you can afford them. Gordon, not a good pitcher. Nobody on the Rockies really is. So far this season, limited sample, only a 104 expected ISO to lefties, but that's only on 90 pitches thrown. If we go back to last year, which is still a small sample, but at least a little bit better, 213 expected ISO to righties, 153 to lefties. I think you just play the best Cubs you can afford. That would pretty much be my approach. It's really just, what you can fit in. They're going to be relatively popular, but their salaries do keep their ownership in check. Toronto taking on the Rangers in Texas. On the mound for Texas, Tyler Mahle. Eric Lauer going for the Blue Jays. I'm not getting to either one. The field's not getting to too much of either one. 5 to 10% coming in to both of them. Tyler Mahle is a decent enough pitcher, but it is a very tough strikeout matchup for him, and he's not a great strikeout pitcher. You can see here that we have him projected to face 23 batters, which is one of the higher marks on the slate. We have him projected between 5 and 6 innings, which is pretty normal. Only projected for about 4 strikeouts, though, at 8,600. And that is in part because Toronto doesn't strike out. They have the third lowest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching this season. The other part of it, though, is that Tyler Mahle is not a great strikeout pitcher either. He showed some flashes earlier in his career when he was with the Reds, but last year only struck out 17.9% of hitters. So far through 60 innings pitched this year, he's only at 18.3%. Stuff plus grade is well below average. Pitching plus grade is above average. So he is somebody, that's getting by with good command, most likely. That is sort of making his stuff play better than it really is. But doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. So it's just tough to pay 8,600 for him. He's another example of somebody where you can really see that, DraftKings pricing factors in ERA pretty heavily. Tyler Mahle has a 1.8 ERA this year. And so he's being priced like he's a really good pitcher when he's been good at run prevention, probably lucky as well, but hasn't been a good strikeout pitcher. And we know that run prevention isn't as important for DFS production as strikeouts are. So not much interest in Tyler Mahle here, and then not much interest in Eric Lauer on the other side either. Corey Seager is expected back today. That makes the Rangers lineup deeper. It makes it better. Tough to strike out, just really good hitter, lengthens this lineup a bit. And it doesn't really matter that it's lefty-lefty because Seager hits everybody. So that's a downgrade for Lauer. The only real selling point on Eric Lauer here is that he is only $6,000. So, if you're trying to stack, for example, maybe the Cubs and, trying to get all of Suzuki, Crow Armstrong, and Tucker into your lineup, maybe you take a shot on a 6K Lauer. He's likely to be the follower, the bulk reliever here. He went 4 1/3 in his most recent outing. He threw 85 pitches. So he is, relatively stretched out. That's the most pitches he had thrown so far this season. Even if he starts, you're probably looking at a similar workload. So if you go there, I think it's just to fit in like a really expensive stack at low ownership, but I'm not getting to him right now. Good park, 4 home runs as well. On the Toronto side, Addison Barger, George Springer, Ernie Clement, all showing up a lot for me. They're getting 5 to 10% ownership for the field, but I'm getting to quite a bit more because they're just really cheap here. And again, I think the matchup isn't great, but it's not horrible either. And it is a good park for hitting home runs. So far this year, Tyler Mahle, 203 expected ISO to right-handed hitters. 168 to right-handed hitters, 104 to lefties. So he has been reverse splits in terms of his power production allowed. Also striking out 24% of lefties compared to only 14% of righties. Barger is left-handed, but Springer and Clement will be hitting from the right side. So getting to them a lot, getting 2x the field on Alejandro Kirk in 18% of my lineups. Dalton Varsho has been hitting extremely well. He's in 14% of my lineups at 4,500. Santander is in 10%. Guerrero's in 8%. So I am getting to the Blue Jays relatively heavily here. Good park for home runs. A team that does have power. And I think most importantly, just pretty inexpensive. They are one of these teams where, the matchup isn't perfect against Tyler Mahle. But if they do come through, one, they have power upside, and then 2, you're just going to have good pitching. You're going to have good one-off secondary stacks around them. If we look at home run projections, you can see that they're not great for this team, but when you factor in the value, just really good point per dollar value here. Ernie Clement looking like the best on the team, but Barger looks good. Kirk looks solid. 2+ fantasy points per dollar on Springer, on Santander, on Bichette. So I do like getting to the Blue Jays, especially if they're just going to get 5 to 10% ownership. On the Texas side against Lauer, I'm getting a lot of them as well. They are projected to be more popular than the Blue Jays, and I am getting similar amounts, probably a little bit more Texas. 10 to 15% ownership coming in to Seager, to Semien, to Langford, to Berger, to Young, and I have at least that much on all of them. Corey Seager leading the way for me. 32% exposure right now to Corey Seager. Lauer going back to 2022, because that's what you have to do to get any sort of real sample on him. Only a 147 expected ISO allowed to lefties. But again, Corey Seager, just a good hitter against anybody. Probably will have the platoon advantage against the bullpen in most matchups after Lauer leaves. But since last year against left-handed pitching, still a 261 expected ISO for Seager, 350 expected WOBA. Happy to get to him at 4,900. Marcus Semien hopefully moves up in the order against the lefty. He's only 3K. He hasn't been any good, but he's cheap at second base. I'm getting 30% of him right now. Obviously, if the Rangers continue to bat him 8th or 9th, that probably comes down a little bit, but he's cheap. Wyatt Langford at 4,900 has power and stolen base upside. Jake Berger's hit better since coming back from the minors. He's only 3,700, probably hitting in the middle of the order with some power upside. So I'm getting to 22% of him. That puts me around 2x the field. Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, both 15 to 20% for me as well. Reasonable price tags there. 3,900 on Garcia, 3,800 on Young. Since the start of last season, 275 expected ISO against left-handed pitching for Langford, 224 for Young, 204 for Berger, only 152 for Garcia, 182 for Semien. There is power in this lineup. Kyle Higashioka possibly in there at 2,600. He has a 292 expected ISO against lefties as well. So there is power upside here in a good park for power. The one thing I will mention, and it is reflected in our projections for anyone using them, there is going to be some pinch hit risk here, most likely for Higashioka, especially if he is DHing. So that will be one thing you want to pay attention to when the lineup comes out. If we have Jonah Heim and Kyle Higashioka in the lineup, if Heim is the DH and Higashioka is the catcher, then pinch hit risk on Higashioka goes down. If Higashioka is the DH and Heim is the catcher, then pinch hit risk on Higashioka remains relatively high. And if Heim is not in the lineup, pinch hit risk on Higashioka remains relatively high as well. It really just becomes a matter of how easy it is for them to replace him at catcher if they pinch hit for him once they are in the bullpen. So that will be something that you want to look for when this Texas lineup comes out. Yankees are taking on the Angels in Anaheim or Los Angeles, whatever you want to call it. Yusei Kikuchi and Clark Schmidt on the mound in this one, and I'm getting a lot of both. I am really happy about getting one of them. I am much less than really happy about getting the other one. But pricing here is reasonable. 7,700 on Schmidt, 7,200 on Kikuchi. Starting with Schmidt, we have him as the second highest projected pitcher on the slate, behind only Matthew Boyd. The matchup against the Angels is a very good strikeout matchup. Highest strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching in baseball this year. Also a below average offense overall, 22nd in WRC+. The only negative here is that it is a good park for home runs, but really good strikeout matchup and a good strikeout pitcher as well. 24% strikeout percentage for Schmidt so far this season. 100.4 stuff plus grade is about league average. 103.1 pitching plus grade is solid. But one other thing I will point out on Schmidt, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, but 24% strikeout percentage this year, down a little bit from 26% last year, but it's not something that I think we should be very concerned about because he's made 7 starts so far this season. His most recent was against the Rockies in Colorado. Obviously, that is not included in what I'm about to say, but other than that, difficult strikeout matchups for the most part. Kansas City, Cleveland, Toronto, San Diego, Seattle, and the Mets were his first 6 starts. That's just a stretch of matchups where you're probably going to strike out less hitters than you will on average over a larger sample. So not that his strikeout percentage this year is that much lower than last year anyway, but I do think it probably continues to increase. And this is certainly a spot where you expect that to happen. On the other side, Kikuchi, I have no confidence here, but he is only 7,200. Last year was a good pitcher, did a good job limiting power, got a lot of strikeouts. This year, he has certainly taken a step back with the Angels. Strikeout percentage is over 7 points lower than it was last year. Stuff plus grade is down 9 points. Pitching plus grade is down 6.5 points. It's still above average, but it's not as good as it was last year. Fastball velo is down a full mile per hour. And now he's facing the Yankees. So I don't have any confidence here. He's getting 13% ownership, though. I'm getting him in like half my lineups right now. Hopefully that changes between now and lock. Like, I would love to find a way to be turning at least some of this Kikuchi into like more Hunter Green, or maybe even just mixing in a little bit of, Tyler Mahle or Noah Cameron or literally anybody else, because this is a terrifying spot. But at the same time, I assume the Yankees will have some ownership, so you're getting some negative correlation on Kikuchi. He does, historically at least, have strikeout upside still. Again, I don't have any confidence here. Hopefully it comes down a bit, but also it is tough to kind of point to that many other pitchers on the slate that I am confident in. Looking at the bats here, for the Yankees. They're getting mostly 15 to 20% ownership. Aaron Judge getting about 25%, as you would expect. Clearly, if you can get the Judge at $6,600, that's great. Good park for hitting home runs. Unbelievably good hitter. Having one of the best seasons ever. Barry Bonds-esque so far. Paul Goldschmidt getting 16% ownership at 4,500. He's my highest owned Yankee right now in 34% of my lineups. He has seemingly remembered how to hit after it seemed like his career was pretty much wrapping up. So far this season, Kikuchi has allowed a 214 expected ISO to right-handed hitters while only striking them out 19.5% of the time. So again, going back to the fact that I have a lot of Kikuchi right now, that does not give me much confidence. And when you're talking about these Yankees bats, Goldschmidt and Judge, Judge obviously on a tier of his own, but Goldschmidt from the right side with a lot of power. Volpe is going to look pretty solid at 4,500, but Goldschmidt does just stand out to me as a good first base play. We haven't actually had a ton of good first base options on this slate. Normally that's a relatively strong position, but it's really not that good when you look at the teams playing today. You have Goldschmidt, you have Berger, you have Guerrero, Pasquantino, Steer. It's not the best position. So I think that's why you're seeing so much Goldschmidt for me as well, and why he's standing out along with Judge in terms of the Yankees that I'm getting to. I'm getting to about 14% Trent Grisham, lefty, assuming he's in the lineup, 10% Volpe, sub 10% for me on Wells, Peraza, Bellinger, Fields around 10% on all of those guys, along with DJ LeMahieu. So clearly, I think the Yankees are good if you can afford them. But to me, the priorities here are Judge and Goldschmidt. You can see the very high home run projections on those two. Obviously, Judge just, again, on a different planet. On the Angels side, this is a team that I generally get a pretty good amount of, and I'm not getting that much of them today, which I'm not upset about. Again, I think Clark Schmidt is very good, and you have a right-handed heavy lineup here for the Angels as well. Going back to last year, Schmidt actually has a higher strikeout percentage against lefties than righties, 29% against lefties, 22% against righties, but righties still haven't done a lot of damage. 134 expected ISO for right-handed hitters, 130 for lefties. So far this year, the strikeout splits are more even, 24% against lefties, 24.5% against righties, 166 expected ISO to right-handed hitters. I have 10% Taylor Ward. I have 10% Moncada, 4% Neto, just not getting to much of this team. And the field's around 5% on most of these guys as well. It is a good park for offense, for home runs. You are getting negative correlation against Schmidt if you want to go that route, but it's not one that I'm getting to right now. I really wouldn't mind if, I said I was getting over the field on Kansas City. If instead I was over the field on the Angels against Schmidt instead of against Green, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But at the same time, the Angels do not have anywhere close to the equivalent of a Bobby Witt Jr. in their lineup to stack through. Finally, we have the Nats taking on the Mariners in Seattle. George Kirby is facing off against Trevor Williams. We have seen the Seattle offense, kind of regress back more towards what we expected when the season started. They have power upside, but they also are striking out now. They started off the season not striking out at all, but they are up to 7th in strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching. They are also 7th in WRC+. 5% projected ownership coming into a $6,200 Trevor Williams. I'm a little bit north of that at 12%. No confidence there, but again, pitching on this slate, for the most part, does leave something to be desired. So far this season, Williams has struck out 18.3% of hitters. That's down a little bit from last year, but his pitching plus grade and his stuff plus grade are both up just about an average 99.5 pitching plus grade. Stuff still below average at about 95. So, again, in this park, it is a very good park for pitching. If you get to a little bit of Williams, I think that's fine, but certainly not anything I'd want to go crazy with. It is worth it to mention that he does have drastic strikeout splits as well. 24.5% K percentage against right-handed pitching this year, 13.8% against left-handed pitching. So do keep an eye on this Seattle lineup. The projected lineup is pretty balanced. 5 lefties / switch hitters, 4 righties. But if for some reason, I don't know what that reason would be, but if for some reason the Mariners run a right-handed heavy lineup out there, like they have Dylan Moore in place of Polanco or something like that, it would be a little bit of a bump for Trevor Williams. George Kirby on the other side, getting 26% ownership. I'm getting to 32%. He is 8,500. Solid price tag for him in the best pitchers park that you can have. He made his first start of the season against Houston on the 22nd. He only went 3 2/3. He threw 72 pitches. I assume he works a little bit deeper than that here. Probably still somewhat limited. I would guess in like the 80 to 85 pitch range. We have him projected for 23 batters faced, 5 to 6 innings. He is generally a pretty efficient pitcher going back to the start of last season. Not a great strikeout pitcher, 23% strikeout percentage, but only a 3% walk percentage. So you have somebody that doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, basically doesn't walk anyone. You're just going to get more total batters faced, even if he is relatively limited on a, from an overall pitch count standpoint. So I think getting to Kirby here makes a lot of sense. I'm getting to him. Looking at the bats, I am over the field on Washington against him, particularly the guys that you would really want. 28% James Wood for me, only projected for 7% ownership at 5,500. Getting to 18% Luis Garcia Jr. at 9% ownership. So I'm about 2x there. And then CJ Abrams getting 8% ownership. I'm 2x at 16% at 5,200. Really not a ton that you need to say about those guys. James Wood has elite power upside. Doesn't matter who he's facing. Obviously less likely to hit a home run off of George Kirby in Seattle than he is off of, some bad pitcher in a different park. But a 170 expected ISO to left-handed hitters since the start of last year for Kirby. Not terrible, but it's not nothing. And James Wood so far this year has a 242 expected ISO against right-handed pitching. 295 expected ISO against right-handed pitching this season. 242 since last season. 409 expected WOBA against right-handed pitching for James Wood. So elite upside there at low ownership. It's just tough to find that kind of upside on a 5-game slate at modest ownership. And then, same can be said for CJ Abrams. Plenty of stolen base upside, plenty of power upside there. Luis Garcia, 3,700. Just a solid value play at a relatively weak second base position. I'm not getting to too much Washington outside of that. Sub 5%, everybody else right now. Field is pretty much 5% or less as well. And then on the Mariners side, against Trevor Williams, getting a lot of them overall. But again, it's really driven by a handful of guys. Julio Rodriguez, Jorge Polanco, Cal Raleigh in 25 to 35% of the lineups that I built against Williams. As I mentioned, Williams does have much better strikeout numbers this year against righties than against lefties. So that is working against Julio Rodriguez. Also, righties have a sub 100 expected ISO against Williams this year. Only 126 since last year. Lefties only have a 129 expected ISO against him since last year. So he has been good over the last couple of seasons at limiting power. This park obviously helps mitigate it as well. But Cal Raleigh is just one of the best power hitting catchers, if not the best power hitting catcher that there is. Jorge Polanco, 4,400 with shortstop and third base eligibility. Julio Rodriguez, 5K, obviously a lot of upside there. Getting to 18% Arozarena as well at only 4,200. And then mixing in some Tellez, Taveras, and Crawford at $3,500 or less salaries. But really building through Rodriguez, Polanco, and Raleigh from the Seattle side. So to recap everything, starting with the pitching, I am getting to Boyd, Kikuchi, Schmidt, and Kirby the most. Hunter Green is the guy that I would like to be getting to. Hope that I'm getting to by lock, that I'm not getting to right now. But you can see those are our highest projected pitchers. At first base, or at catcher rather, I am getting to Cal Raleigh, Alejandro Kirk, and Hunter Goodman the most. Sort by fantasy points here. We have Raleigh, Wells, and Kirk as our highest projected catchers. At first base, I am getting to Goldschmidt, Berger, and Pasquantino the most. We have Goldschmidt, Guerrero, Berger, Pasquantino as our highest projected first baseman. I am also getting to some Ernie Clement, but mostly at second base. Second base, Semien, Clement, India, Garcia are my highest owned players. This is a position where it looks like I'm really just going for value. You can see here that those are actually the highest projected second baseman that we have. It's not a very good position today, but it is a spot that you can look to save some money and then be able to pay up at other positions. At third base, I'm getting to Addison Barger, Jorge Polanco, Josh Young the most. We have Polanco, Moncada, Espinal, Garcia as our highest projected, but if you sort by point per dollar, you can see we have a very good point per dollar projection on Addison Barger, so that's driving that for me. At shortstop, paying up a bit more, Corey Seager, Bobby Witt Jr., CJ Abrams, my three highest owned, Witt, De La Cruz, Abrams, the three highest projected. And then in the outfield, again, able to pay up a bit, Julio Rodriguez, James Wood. There we go. Julio Rodriguez, James Wood, George Springer, Wyatt Langford, Aaron Judge, my highest owned. In terms of projection, you can see Judge, Wood, Langford, Tucker, Rodriguez, Crow, Armstrong, Springer. So pretty much in line with what I'm getting to, other than I'm not getting quite as much of the Cubs guys as I am the rest of them. As far as stacks go, my overall most used stacks right now, Texas, Seattle, Toronto, the Yankees, and Washington. 5-mans, Texas, Toronto, Seattle, Colorado, and the Yankees. That's all I have for you on this one. I'll throw in a home run pick. Not going to go with Judge because I think that's cheating. I think I went Christian Walker yesterday who got there. I don't remember. But I'll go with Langford against Lauer in Texas. 4th best home run projection for us. Aaron Judge is cheating. Wood is in a park where it's really tough to homer, even though obviously he's capable of homering anywhere. Varsho, I don't love the matchup against Molly, although I do like the park. But I'll go Langford. I like the matchup. I like the park. I like the hitter. So we'll go with him as a home run pick. That's all I have for you on this one. Thank you for checking out the show. Thank you for sticking with it through the technical difficulties. Hopefully that corrects itself by tomorrow. Probably going to be a similar time tomorrow. I haven't looked. I assume there's a split slate, but also I know I have a meeting in the morning. So I will be sure to tweet out the time, subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when I post when the show will be. But it will be early-ish, just maybe not around noon. Depends on when I get out of the meeting that I have. But thanks for checking out the show. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up button. All that helps out quite a bit. Good luck on your lineups tonight.